What's up, guys? We're doing a very fun new limited series talking about T.S. Eliot's amazing poem, The Dry Salvages, and how it relates to Jean Gebser's work, time freedom, and just time in general. If you've been following my little community post, you will know that this was coming up, and I hope you did some homework because we got some good stuff. I'm a little ahead here. So, I was feeling a little bit of a spiritual malaise, and I was like, all right, I need to read something that really gets me back going, and boom, read this poem. I was actually going to read Little Getting, which is in this collected work of poems, and it was on page like 199 or whatever, so I flipped to what I thought would be page 199. It was like page 193, and I was going to keep flipping the pages, and my eye caught the text, and I was reading, and I was like, wait a second, this is incredibly base. Why don't I just review this? So I read it, and it was an incredibly profound poem to me. I found this to be very profound. It's probably going to be my favorite poem from now on. As much as I love Paul Valéry's The Ship, and that is a great poem, this one is just a different level. But without further ado, let's get into it. So we're going to be talking about some pretty high concepts. We're not going to be talking a ton about iambic pentameter, or whatever you call it. I'm not a poetry student, I'm not an English student, I'm not even a philosophy student. But we are going to be getting into its philosophical content. So if you're a poetry guy or girl and you think, oh, it sucks that we can't analyze all the poetic techniques, I would recommend still staying, because I actually think the philosophical content is going to be more difficult, and I think I've kind of cracked the code here. So hopefully you'll get something from that. We're going to read the whole first section of this poem is composed of 5 sections, and we're going to do 1 section per video. I'm going to read the whole poem. We're going to go line by line analysis. Then we're going to read the whole poem again. There are going to be some points in this poem that I might gesture at things that come on later. So if you think, well, he kind of opened up this concept, but he didn't quite resolve it neatly, don't worry, because we're going to resolve it all throughout the rest of this video. So be patient. Don't worry about the other videos. They will come. And without further ado, let's get into it. And you can see I like this video, or I like this poem, because I wrote the hell out of this thing on my margins. There's some great stuff here. Okay. Without further ado, I give you section 1 of The Dry Salvages. This is Eliot. I do not know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god sullen, untamed and intractable, patient to some degree, at first recognized as a frontier, useful, untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce, then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. The problem once solved, the brown god is almost forgotten by the dwellers in cities, ever, however, implacable. Keeping his season in rages, destroyer, reminder of what men choose to forget, unhonored, unpropitiated by worshippers of the machine, but waiting, watching and waiting. His rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom, and the rank ailanthus of the April dooryard, and the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle, and the winter gaslight. The river is within us, the sea is all about us. The sea is the land's edge also, the granite into which it reaches, the beaches where it tosses its hints of earlier and other creation, the starfish, the horseshoe crab, the whale's backbone, the pools where it offers to our curiosity the more delicate algae and the sea anemone, anemone, I can never pronounce that word. It tosses up our losses, the torn seam, the shattered lobster pot, the broken oar and the gear of foreign dead men. The sea has many voices, many gods and many voices. The salt is on the briar rose. The fog is in the fir trees. The sea howl and the sea yelp are different voices often together heard. The whine in the rigging, the menacing caress of wave that breaks on water, the distant rote in the granite teeth, and the wailing warning from the approaching headland are all sea voices, and the heavier groaner rounded homewards, and the seagull. And under the oppression of the silent fog, the tolling bell measures time, not our time, rung by the unhurried groundswell, a time older than the time of chronometers, older than time counted by anxious, worried women lying awake, calculating the future, trying to unweave, unwind, unravel, and piece together the past and the future, between midnight and dawn, when the past is all deception, the future futureless, before the morning watch when time stops and time is never ending, and the groundswell, that is and was from the beginnings, clangs the bell. Whew! That's some good shit, huh? I like it. Now, if you're one of my Gebster loyalists, I think you could tell why I was so drawn to this poem. All right, let's get into it. So line by line. I'm going to read from this section. Okay. I do not know much about gods, but I think that the river is a strong brown god sullen, untamed and intractable. Patient to some degree, I first recognize as a frontier. So, we have a very obvious association with the river, with gods. Not only any god, but a god sullen, which seems like an angry god. So the god is not necessarily a god like Christ, but think of it like the magic structure, where Xerxes had the river flogged for not letting it pass. So rather than being an inert spatial object that's, emotional meaning is layered on top of it after the fact, it's already a magical being. It's already a magical entity unto itself, and in turn it has to be respected. You can't just do things. If you cross it, it's because it allowed you to cross. And he's saying it's untamed and intractable. So yes, the river is a sort of magical god, but let's not get lost on only its efficient aspects. There is also a deficient, seemingly, aspect to it, where it's untamed and intractable. This will be important, and patient to some degree. So, next, it is useful, but untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce. Then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. Now, this is a little confusing if you don't read the rest of the section, right? How can a river, how is it a god, number one? And why is it being seen in opposition to building bridges and rational activity? Let's see, untrustworthy conveyor of commerce, then only a problem confronting the builder of bridges. So when we have a conveyor of commerce and we have the builder of bridges, these are two rational conceptions. One would be money, which obviously cannot come about without rationality. We have currency. And then the other, we have the builder of bridges, which of course you would need a rational model to do. You need science, you need physics, you need mathematics. These are all home of the rational. Science is the rational way of doing things. So he's saying that the river is godly and spiritual, but then the problem is people come in and they only see the river as a conveyor of commerce or as a problem to be confronted, and confronted by ameliorating its negative effects through building bridges, which is to say by applying rational thought. So the problem once solved, the brown god is almost forgotten by the dwellers in cities. So associating the river with a god and seeing the god as a problem, and I think what he's saying is that the dwellers in cities, the one who use all this rationality to build their large buildings and their megalopolis, they have solved the problem of the river, which is to say that atheism and rationality has quote-unquote solved the problem of God or spirituality. Now, of course, this is a pseudo-solving, but we'll get there. Keeping his seasons and rages, destroyer, reminder of what men choose to forget, unhonored, appropriated by worshippers of the machine, but waiting, watching, and waiting. So this river also has a season and rages. So season, of course, is a particular movement, right? You're cycling through things. So this is a movement, and all movement unfolds according to some sort of temporal unfolding. Now, whether this temporal unfolding is this sort of 1 second, 2 second, 3 second, or as in with seasons, as he mentioned, it's this 2D flat circle where it begins where it ends and ends where it begins. It doesn't matter. The point is everything is moving, and everything is moving, everything moves according to time. Now, if you follow my Gebster series, what is informed by when? So the temporal unfolding directly informs what it is that is unfolding, right? And we can see this. He says his rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom. So again, we're drawing a connection between the river, spirituality, and movement. In the rank ailanthus of the April dooryard, and the smell of grapes on the autumn table, and the evening circle in the winter gaslight. So the river is within us. The sea is all about us. So in my opinion, this first little mini section becomes very difficult to understand without the first line in this next section. The river is within us. So rather than seeing obviously the river as an external godly thing, The river is something internal, and because the river moves according to seasons, which is to say according to a 2D flat circle, which is the way time unfolds when disclosed by the soul, because it has a rhythm, and because it's tied with spirituality, well, that's why I think the river is the soul, or any sort of internal emotional power. Now, we're going to really quickly reread through this again, knowing that the river is the soul. Well, it says, patient to some degree, untamed and intractable. Untamed and intractable. So that is an obvious gesture at the fact that the soul is not something that is measurable and neat and something that you can control, like my little mouse pad here. It is also something that is moving, and it has its own urges, its own intensities. And of course, we see this in everyday life all the time. People being carried to the end of the world to save the ones they loved. Sometimes people killing their former lovers, scorn lovers. Maybe the soul has become too untamed and too intractable. It is patient to some degree, and it is first recognized as a frontier. So from the perspective of the rational ego, the soul and its vastness and its extreme volatility and its extreme movement is something is seen as a frontier, which is a spatial conception to be controlled and mastered. That is how the soul is originally seen to the rationalist. It's useful, I guess, but it's untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce. So the river, which is the soul, is untrustworthy as a conveyor of commerce, which is to say the soul is untrustworthy in meeting or enacting rational ends. Then, once that becomes a problem, or once that problem is solved, the soul really becomes more or less a defect of the human condition. It just becomes a barrier for rational thought. So all you have to do is build the bridge over it so we don't have to worry about the river anymore. We can go on top of it. This is a gesturing at the rationalist idea that if I just kind of ignore the soul because it's immeasurable, it's irrational, and it moves in the 2D, it's completely different from the mental way of doing things. It'll be like as if it never existed. If I just don't acknowledge what's going on, it'll never bubble up. And if it does, I have all my little stoic techniques, and I'll be fine. Eliot doesn't like that. So once this happens, the brown God, which is the soul, becomes forgotten by our contemporary city-dwelling rationalist atheists, including me before I read Gebser. But as the soul keeps its seasons and rages, it still is efficacious. It still is present and efficacious, which means all of our rational plans are being screwed up by it. And they're being screwed up by it because you keep trying to ignore it. The worshippers of the machine, they ignore it, and they have a problem. So that's what he means when he says his rhythm was present in the nursery bedroom and all this stuff. Well, the soul's rhythm was present in all these different situations. Because, of course, how could a literal river, external, be present in a nursery bedroom? Doesn't make sense. Okay, so the river is within us, and the sea is all about us. So if the river represents the internal soul, and the sea, in my opinion, represents the vastness of the external world and eternity. So not only all that has happened in this contemporary moment, but all that has ever happened in the past. And the sea is the land's edge also. So the land is human creation, in my opinion. The granite into which it reaches, the beach is where it tosses out its hints of earlier and other creation. So the beach is interesting because if land is a matter of human creation, well, the beach is this really cool interconnecting medium between the vastness of the external world and eternity and human creation of the world. So, of course, the ocean or the sea, the vastness of the external world and all events that have happened in the past, it tosses its hints of earlier and other creation. And notice the diversity here. So we have the starfish, horseshoe crab, whale's backbone, pools, algae, torn scene, shattered lobster pot. In my opinion, the diversity of what is being spit up by the sea into the land is a representation of the diversity of past cultures and, more specifically, more importantly, the preceding consciousness structures and mode of being that brought these cultures into being in the first place. It is not just the lobster pot and the lobster pot and the lobster pot. So when I look back at history, or even today in the world, I don't just see one dominant culture that has been around forever. I see multiple different cultures with their own different ways of being, their own different consciousness structures, and that, I think, is represented by the diversity of what is being spit up by the sea. It's very important. It's very, 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 very important. There's so much diversity in the sea. And again, the sea is the external. Let's see. So there's another important line here when he says, the sea howl and the sea yelp are different voices often together heard. So again, the sea howl and the sea yelp, these are two, let's say, past different cultures. Cultures that exist in the past, for let's say both had about a 200-year run. These two could be completely distinct as a howl and a yelp are, even if they both come from the sea. But the problem is they're often together heard. Now, what does that mean? I think what Eliot is expressing poetically here is that past cultures that are distinct from the mental, rational way of doing things are often together heard, which is to say they're often conflated and put into the box of irrational or pre-rational or both, and therefore not worthy of consideration. And I think what Eliot is saying here is, from the irrational perspective, this is from a consciousness structure perspective, this is a profoundly reductive and just unbelievably limited mode of being and a mode of understanding past cultures in the world. It's completely absurd. The idea that you could take a culture that was built from the exclusive magic structure, and then a culture that was built from an exclusive mythical magic structure, and call these the same is ridiculous. And even if you did have two cultures that were mythic magic, you still would have, again, myth comes about from experience, and of course these cultures are going to have different experiences. So you're still going to have two completely different ways of seeing the world. And unfortunately, we have a really bad way of, well, we know what it is, rationalism. Anything that is not rational either does not or should not exist. And I think that's represented beautifully here by the sea howl and the sea yelp are different voices often together heard. Let's see. Are all sea voices all these different diversities? Again, more diversity of the world. Are all sea voices and the heaving groaner rounded homewards, and the seagull? Now this is very, very, very important. And under the oppression of the silent fog, the tolling bell measures time, not our time, rung by the unhurried groundswell, a time older than the time of chronometers, older than time counted by anxious, worried women lying awake calculating the future. So obviously what he's saying is permeating the world and all of its events. Not only is space, but there's also this time problem. Now time, as he gestures at here beautifully, measures time with the chronometer, calculating, anxious, worried woman lying awake, calculating the future. I mean, if you follow my Gebser series, this is the most obvious gesture or allusion you could follow or find. What he's referencing is linear time, clock time, the calendar, which is to say mental time. So when the mind is the primary organ of perception, time is disclosed as such. Rationality was born from the preceding discovery of perspectivity, which is, say, objectified space, which means that in rationality, you're spatially arraying your thoughts, which means space has a very important aspect in this. Okay. Well, shit. What the hell was I just going to say? Oh, that's right. So if we're talking about time, and if we're talking about mental time, we would expect space to have a high or play an important role in this conception of time, and we do. So right now it's 9:43 p.m. It's not 9:44, it's not 9:45, it's not 9:42, it's not 9:43 a.m. What has happened is time becomes a spatial unit divided and partitioned from other spatial units, 9:42, 9:44 in this case, and assigned a numerical value to represent it, i.e. a rational number, and we do all of this because this mode of time helps confer order, clarity, and depth on the world, on for those who employ this mode of time. This is rational time. We use this in our daily lives every second of every day. It's not a bad thing, but as we're going to make clear later on in this video, is that there are multiple layers of time existing simultaneously. There's time as a quantity, 9:44, 9:43. That's what Eliot's gesturing at. And there's also time as a quality. There's rhythm, there's meter, there's biological time, there's space-time. There's all these different things, and we're going to make this very clear in this series, so don't worry. But notice what Eliot is doing here. He's saying not only is he paying respect to the idea that linear clock time is not the only layer of time or not the only way of experiencing time. There is an older time, older than the chronometers, chronology, which is the 9:44, 9:45, 9:46, the rational time, that emerges from a groundswell. And I believe the groundswell that the more truer form of time emerges from is essentially some sort of spiritual origin. I think in this little section here, what he's saying is, exclusive mental rational time leaves people lying awake calculating the future, an anxious worried woman trying to unweave, unwind, and unravel and piece together the past and the future. Unfortunately, if they were base and they read Jean Gebser or Eliot, they would understand that time is actually shaped like a sphere. So rather than a triangle where you have past here, future here, and present is this sort of medium, this point of convergence, or this dividing line, rather the triangle, right, it shapes into a sphere. Because if you have the present up here and the past and future, according to mental linear time, as the past, as we move further and further from the past, its effect on us becomes less and less. That is bullshit. Same thing with the future. Only as it becomes nearer does it start to affect us. That's not true at all. There's still people who are at the age of 89 who still can't get over a 9-year-old traumatic experience. Rather than the past and future being disconnected from the present, the past and future shape the present and therefore are present. Don't worry, we're going to make this a little more clear as the video goes along. But what Eliot is saying is, look, when you don't understand time as a sphere in which everything folds in on itself, and you only do this clock time, this is what you get. You try to piece together the past and the future, and it leaves you lying awake, an anxious, worried woman trying to unweave, unwind, unravel by doing this. But the great irony is you're staring at that which has always been present. You're staring at something directly in the face. Right here, it's present, right here, the future. And you're insisting to me that it won't show up until another 50 years. No, it's right here. So ironically, in mentally and abstractly focusing so much on the past and future, which should give you a direct connection to it, you actually become disconnected from it because you're not understanding it. Time is an ever-perpetuating and existing sphere. There is no strict beginning and end to it, and it just sort of exists. It's very beautiful. Let's see, let's finish this out. The future futureless before the morning watch, when the time stops, and time is never ending, and the groundswell, that is, it was from the beginning, clangs the bell. So we'll end there. This last line, we're actually going to pick this up in this next section. So if you guys want to get a little head start, please feel free. It's about 5 sections. It's a brilliant book. And I hope this was pretty good. If not, honestly, if this wasn't good, just let me know, and I'll just re-record this, and I'll try something else. But let me know what you guys think. I hope you guys enjoyed this so far. And don't worry, because we're going to dig in even more as this limited series continues. I love you guys very much, and thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you.